When my daughter-in-law threw my wedding photo in the trash and laughed, I said nothing. When she packed up 40 years of my memories into garbage bags while mocking every single one, I stayed silent. But when she found those bank statements tucked behind my mother's portrait, her face went white as snow, and suddenly she wasn't laughing anymore. Let me tell you, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the most powerful weapon you have. My name is Isabella, and this is the story of how I learned that lesson the hardest way possible. I raised my son Marcus in a small two-bedroom house on Maple Street, the same house my parents left me when they passed. It wasn't much to look at from the outside: pale yellow siding that needed paint, a porch that creaked in all the right places, rose bushes my mother planted in 1972 that still bloomed every June. But inside those walls, I built a life. I worked double shifts at the hospital for 23 years as a nurse, coming home with aching feet and a grateful heart because every paycheck meant Marcus could have new school clothes, could go on field trips, could dream bigger than our little house. Marcus was my whole world. His father left when he was 3, just walked out one Tuesday morning and never came back, so it was just the two of us against everything. I taught him to ride a bike in our driveway, sat through every parent-teacher conference, cheered at every Little League game, even when I'd worked a 12-hour shift. When he got accepted to State University, I cried for an hour in my car. Not sad tears, proud ones. My baby was going to have opportunities I never had. He met Sienna during his junior year. She was studying business, came from a family with money, the kind of people who summered places and talked about investment portfolios at dinner. When Marcus brought her home for the first time, I baked my famous lemon cake, cleaned the house top to bottom, put fresh flowers on the table. I wanted her to feel welcome, to see that even though we didn't have much, we had love. Looking back, I should have noticed the way her eyes scanned my living room that first visit, lingering on the worn sofa, the outdated kitchen cabinets, the photographs covering every available surface. I should have paid attention when she whispered something to Marcus, and he looked embarrassed. But I was so happy my son had found someone, so eager to make her feel like family, that I missed all the small warnings. They married 2 years after graduation, in a beautiful ceremony at a country club. I wore my best dress, navy blue, slightly outdated but clean and pressed, and I smiled until my face hurt. Sienna's mother barely spoke to me during the reception. Her father asked what I did for a living, and when I said I was a nurse, he said, "Oh, how practical," in a tone that made the word sound like an insult. After the wedding, Marcus and Sienna moved into a small apartment across town. I visited every Sunday, bringing food I'd cooked, helping with laundry, babysitting when they wanted date nights. When Sienna got pregnant with my grandson, I was overjoyed. I knitted blankets, bought tiny clothes, set up a nursery corner in my house when they'd visit. Little Mason was born on a rainy October morning, and the moment I held him, my heart cracked open with a love I didn't know I still had room for. I helped Sienna those first difficult months, showing up at midnight when the baby wouldn't stop crying, doing their grocery shopping when she was too exhausted, rocking Mason to sleep while singing the same songs I'd sung to Marcus. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Isabella," Sienna said to me once, her voice thick with sleep deprivation. "You're a lifesaver." I believed her. God help me, I actually believed her. It was a Thursday afternoon in late March when everything changed. I remember because my rose bushes were just starting to bud, and I'd been planning to show Mason how to plant seeds in the garden that weekend. The phone rang at 2:35 p.m. I was folding laundry in my living room, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, hitting all my photographs just right. Marcus at his high school graduation, Marcus and Sienna's wedding, baby Mason's first smile. "Mom?" Marcus's voice sounded strange, tight, controlled. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Is the baby okay?" "The baby's fine. Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. Can Sienna and I come over, like now?" My stomach did a small flip. In all his 30 years, Marcus had never sounded quite like that. "Of course, I'll put coffee on." They arrived 20 minutes later. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes as they walked in. Sienna was carrying Mason, but she handed him to me quickly, like she needed her hands free for something. The baby gurgled happily in my arms, oblivious. "Let's sit down," Marcus said, gesturing to my kitchen table. I sat, Mason on my lap, looking between my son and his wife. Sienna's expression was cold, calculated. Marcus looked miserable. "Mom," he started, then stopped, cleared his throat. "Mom, Sienna and I have been talking, and we've made some decisions about our future." "Okay," I said slowly. "That sounds good. What kind of decisions?" Sienna spoke up, her voice crisp and businesslike. "We've been looking at houses, real houses, not apartments, places with good school districts, proper yards, rooms for Mason to grow into." "That's wonderful," I said, bouncing Mason gently. "I'm so happy for you both. You've been saving so well." "Yes, well, that's the thing. Houses in good neighborhoods are expensive, Isabella, very expensive, and we can't afford what we want on our current budget." Something in her tone made my arms tighten around Mason. "I don't understand what you're telling me." Marcus finally looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that scared me. Resignation, guilt. "Mom, your house. It's in a good location. The real estate market has really picked up in this area. A developer reached out to us last month. They're interested in the whole block. They want to tear down these old houses and build new townhomes." My heart started pounding. "Marcus, this is my home." "It's just a house, Mom. And honestly, it's falling apart. The roof leaks, the plumbing is ancient, the electrical is probably a fire hazard. You're 63 years old, living alone in a place that's way too much for you to maintain." "I manage just fine." "Do you?" Sienna interrupted. "Because from what I see, you're working yourself to death trying to keep up a house that's worth more as a teardown than it is standing. Marcus tells me you're still working night shifts at the hospital at your age. That's not sustainable, Isabella." I looked at Marcus. "Is this what you want? You want me to sell my childhood home, your childhood home, so you can buy a bigger house?" He wouldn't look at me. "Mom, it makes financial sense. You could sell this place, and we could buy something big enough for all of us. You could live with us. We'd have a mother-in-law suite, and you'd be right there to help with Mason and any future grandchildren. You'd never have to work again. We'd take care of you." Live with them in a mother-in-law suite, a small, separate space where I'd be close enough to babysit whenever they needed, but far enough that I wouldn't be in the way. I felt something cold settling in my chest. "And if I don't want to sell?" Sienna laughed, actually laughed. It was a short, sharp sound without humor. "Then you're being selfish, frankly. You're sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity while your son and grandson live in a cramped apartment. What kind of mother does that?" "Sienna," Marcus said quietly, but he didn't contradict her. I stood up, still holding Mason, feeling like the floor had become unsteady beneath my feet. "I need you both to leave. I need to think." "There's nothing to think about, Isabella," Sienna said, standing as well. "We've already talked to a real estate agent. The market is hot right now, but it won't stay that way. If you want to do what's best for your family, you'll list this house next week. We've even found someone who can handle the sale, Marcus's colleague's wife. She'll give you a good deal on commission." "Get out!" The words came out quieter than I intended, but they heard me. "Mom," Marcus started, "get out of my house. Now." They left. Marcus looked back once from the doorway, his face a mixture of shame and something else, resentment, but Sienna walked out with her head high, as if she'd just won something. I stood in my kitchen for a long time after they left, holding my grandson who had fallen asleep against my shoulder. The afternoon sun was still streaming through the windows, hitting all those photographs, making the glass frames sparkle. 40 years of memories covered these walls. My wedding day, Marcus's first steps, birthdays, Christmases, graduations, my mother holding baby Marcus, my father teaching him to fish. This wasn't just a house, this was my life, my history, my safe place in a world that had never been particularly safe for me. And my son, my beautiful boy, whom I'd sacrificed everything for, wanted me to give it all up. Not for himself, he would have asked differently, more gently. He'd been coached, prepared. Sienna had orchestrated this, and Marcus had gone along with it. I should have known then. I should have realized this was just the beginning, but I still believed, despite everything, that my son loved me, that family meant something, that we could work this out. How wrong I was. The next morning, I called Marcus. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice cautious. Hi, Mom. Marcus, can we talk? Just you and me, without Sienna. There was a pause. I heard muffled voices in the background. Sienna is my wife, Mom. We're a team. Whatever you say to me, you can say to both of us. That hurt more than I expected. Sweetheart, I just want to understand. This house, it's not just mine. It's yours, too. It's where you grew up. Don't you have any feelings about seeing it torn down? Mom, I'm trying to build a future here. Sienna and I have goals. We want to give Mason the kind of life I never had. Stability, space, opportunities. Can't you understand that? I gave you opportunities. I worked myself to exhaustion to make sure you had. Yeah, and I appreciate that. I really do. But this is different. This is about Mason now. Are you really going to put your attachment to an old house above your grandson's future? The way he said it, like my home was just an old house, like my 40 years here meant nothing, made my throat tight with tears I refused to shed. That's not fair. What's not fair is asking me to choose between you and my wife, Mom. That's what you're doing right now. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to respect my decision about my own property. Fine. His voice went cold. But don't be surprised when there are consequences. Sienna and I need to focus on our family now, our immediate family. We need to think about what's best for Mason. I am his grandmother, and we'll let you see him when it's convenient for us. But we can't keep relying on you for childcare if you're not going to be part of the family plan. We'll need to make other arrangements. The threat was clear. Sell the house or lose access to your grandson. My hands shook as I held the phone. You would keep Mason from me? Your son would do that? I'm not keeping anyone from anyone, Mom. I'm just saying we need to be realistic about our priorities. Think about what I said. We'll talk soon. He hung up. I sat in my kitchen, the phone still in my hand, staring at the wall of photographs. There was Marcus at age 5, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a Father's Day card he'd made for my dad before he died. Marcus at 12, skinny and awkward after his first school dance. Marcus at 22, in his graduation gown, arm around my shoulders, both of us beaming. When had I lost him? When had my sweet boy become this person who could threaten his own mother? But I knew the answer. Sienna. It was always Sienna. For 2 weeks, I heard nothing. No calls, no visits, no photos of Mason sent to my phone. I drove by their apartment twice, but their car wasn't there. I left voicemails that went unreturned. I sent text messages that showed as read but received no replies. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, noticed my distress. She'd lived next door for 20 years, watched Marcus grow up, attended his graduation party in my backyard. Isabella, you look terrible, she said bluntly one morning when she found me sitting on my porch at 6 a.m., unable to sleep. What's happened? I told her everything. She listened, her face growing more and more concerned. That girl, she said when I finished, I knew something was off about her. You remember when they visited last Christmas? I saw her taking pictures of your house from the outside. Not normal pictures either. She was walking around taking shots from different angles, like she was documenting something. What? Why would she do that? I don't know, but I remember thinking it was strange. And another thing, last month I saw a man in a suit walking around the neighborhood with a clipboard. He stopped and looked at your house for a long time, took some notes. At the time, I thought maybe he was from the city checking on something, but now I wonder. A man with a clipboard taking notes about my house? A chill ran down my spine. Mrs. Chen, if anyone comes around asking about me or my property, will you let me know? Of course, dear. And Isabella, don't let them bully you. This is your home. You don't owe anyone anything. That afternoon, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, Sienna stood there alone, holding Mason. She was smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hi, Isabella. Can we come in? I think you and I need to have a woman-to-woman talk." Every instinct told me to say no, but Mason reached his little arms out to me, calling "Gamma, Gamma" in his sweet baby voice, and I couldn't refuse. We sat in my living room. I held Mason, inhaling his baby smell, feeling my heart ache with how much I'd missed him. "Look," Sienna said, her tone conspiratorial, like we were friends, "I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'm not trying to take anything from you, Isabella. I'm trying to help you." "Help me?" "Yes, you've worked so hard your whole life. Don't you want to rest? Don't you want to spend time with your grandson without worrying about mortgage payments, utility bills, yard maintenance? If you sell this house and move in with us, you'd have so much freedom, no responsibilities, no stress, just family time." "I don't have a mortgage," I said quietly. "The house has been paid off for years." Something flickered across her face. "Oh, well, still, the upkeep costs must be enormous, and at your age, do you really want to be dealing with that? I'm 63, Sienna, not 90. She laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Of course not. I just mean, wouldn't it be nice to have help, to have family around?" "I've been asking for family around for 2 weeks. No one answered my calls." Her smile tightened. "Marcus has been very hurt by your refusal to even consider our proposal. He feels like you don't trust his judgment, like you don't think he knows what's best for his own son." "This isn't about trust. It's about my home." "Your home," she repeated, and now the mask slipped a little. "This house, these old walls, these dusty photographs, that's more important to you than your grandson's future, than your son's happiness? Don't do that. Don't make this about choosing between things I shouldn't have to choose between." She stood up abruptly, startling Mason. "I'm trying to be patient with you, Isabella, I really am, but there's a reality here you're not accepting. Marcus and I are young, building our careers, raising a child. We need resources. You're sitting on resources you don't even need. The ethical thing to do would be to help us." "Ethical?" I stared at her. "You're telling me it's unethical not to sell my home so you can buy a bigger one? I'm telling you that family takes care of family, or at least that's what you always said. All those stories about how you sacrificed for Marcus, worked double shifts, went without so he could have things. Was that all talk, or are you willing to actually put your family first?" She reached for Mason, pulling him from my arms. He started to cry, reaching back for me, but she turned him away. "Think about it, Isabella. Really think about it, because Marcus and I are moving forward with or without you. There are other ways to finance a house, but if you help us, you get to be part of our lives. If you don't, well, we'll be very busy with our new house, new neighborhood, new friends. We might not have much time for visits." She left, taking my grandson with her, leaving me sitting alone in my living room, her words echoing in my head. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have known, was that this conversation was just the opening move in a much larger plan. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Sienna's words, the look in her eyes, the calculation behind every sentence. At 2:47 a.m., I got out of bed and went to my home office, a small spare room where I kept files, old documents, my computer. I started looking through my financial papers, something I hadn't done in months. Bills were on auto-pay. My small retirement account was managed by an advisor at the bank. I'd never been good with money. I made it, saved what I could, paid what I owed, and tried not to worry too much about the rest. But now, something Mrs. Chen had said kept nagging at me. Pictures of the house, a man with a clipboard, taking notes. I pulled up my email and started searching for anything related to real estate or property. Nothing unusual. Then I checked my physical mail from the last few months, the stack I'd been meaning to sort through. Third envelope down, I found something that made my blood run cold. It was from the county assessor's office, dated 6 weeks ago. A property assessment update. My house, which I'd always thought was worth maybe $200,000, was now assessed at $485,000.
The entire block had been reassessed because of new zoning changes and developer interest in the area.
$485,000. My hands shook as I held the paper. I'd had no idea. The letter explained that the neighborhood had been rezoned for mixed-use development, making the properties far more valuable to commercial buyers. There was a note about potential tear-down value being even higher due to lot size. Marcus and Sienna knew. They had to know. That's why they'd approached me now, after years of living quietly in their apartment, after years of Sienna never expressing any particular interest in real estate. I kept digging. In a folder of old documents, I found the deed to my house. My parents had left it to me outright, no strings attached, but paper-clipped to it was something I'd forgotten about, a handwritten note from my mother, dated 2 months before she died. Isabella, it read in her shaky handwriting, this house is yours. Never let anyone pressure you into leaving it. Your father and I worked our whole lives to give you this security. It's not just walls and a roof, it's your foundation. Promise me you'll keep it unless you decide otherwise. Not Marcus, not anyone else. You. Love, Mama. Tears streamed down my face as I read her words. She'd known. Somehow she'd known to warn me. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table as the sun came up, thinking, planning. Something was very wrong here, something bigger than just Marcus and Sienna wanting a nicer house. At 8 a.m., I called my bank. I asked to speak with my financial advisor, Mr. Peterson, whom I'd worked with for 15 years. Isabella, he said warmly when he came on the line, I was actually going to call you this week. We need to discuss something. What's that? Well, about 3 weeks ago, a young man came in asking about your accounts, said he was your son, wanted to discuss some financial planning for your future. I told him I couldn't discuss your accounts without you present, of course, but he was quite persistent, asked specifically about your savings, your retirement fund, whether you had any investments. I thought it was odd, so I made a note in your file. My stomach dropped. Marcus came to the bank? Yes, he seemed very interested in what would happen to your accounts if something happened to you, asked about your beneficiary designations, whether you'd set up any trusts. Again, I didn't tell him anything specific, but Isabella, I have to say, it felt intrusive. Is everything all right? Mr. Peterson, I need you to tell me exactly what my financial situation is. Everything. Savings, retirement, any accounts I might have forgotten about. And I need to know who has access to what. There was a pause. Let me pull up your full profile. Give me just a moment. I waited, my heart pounding as I heard him typing. All right, he said finally. You have your checking account with about $8,000, your primary savings with $47,000, and your retirement account with $293,000. You also have that old savings account your parents set up for you years ago. Looks like there's about $31,000 in that one. And then there's the CD that matured last year, which rolled into a high-yield savings account. That's got $52,000. I did quick math in my head. Over $400,000 in liquid assets, plus a house now worth nearly $500,000. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't poor either. I'd been living modestly for so long, I'd stopped paying attention to what I'd actually accumulated. Who's listed as beneficiary on these accounts? On the retirement account, you have Marcus listed as primary beneficiary. On the others, let me check. Yes, Marcus on all of them. That's standard, of course, he's your only child. And if something happened to me, he'd inherit everything? Well, yes, assuming you don't have a will stating otherwise. Do you have an updated will, Isabella? I'm not sure. I made one years ago, but I don't remember the last time I looked at it. I'd recommend reviewing that, and Isabella, if I don't mind my saying so, given your son's recent interest in your finances, you might want to think about some protective measures. Not that I'm suggesting anything untoward, but it's always good to be cautious. What kind of protective measures?
Well, you could set up a trust for one thing, or you could diversify your beneficiary designations. You could also add some restrictions on the accounts, requiring your signature for any major changes, setting up alerts for any access attempts, just safeguards. I thanked him and hung up, my mind racing. Marcus had gone to my bank, asking questions about my money, without telling me, without my permission. And suddenly, Sienna's words took on a whole new meaning. There are other ways to finance a house, she'd said. We're moving forward with or without you. What if with me didn't mean me living with them in some mother-in-law suite? What if it meant accessing my money, inheriting my assets?
No, no, I was being paranoid. Marcus wouldn't. He couldn't. But even as I tried to reassure myself, I knew something was terribly wrong. I went to my filing cabinet and pulled out my old will. It was dated 12 years ago, shortly after Marcus graduated college. Simple and straightforward, everything to Marcus. At the time, it made sense. He was my only family, my whole world. Of course he'd inherit everything. But looking at it now, knowing what I knew, I felt exposed, vulnerable. I needed help, professional help. I needed someone who could tell me if I was overreacting or if my instincts were right. I called my old friend Patricia, who'd retired from the hospital 3 years earlier and whose daughter was a lawyer. Patricia, I need a favor. Can you ask your daughter if she'd meet with me? I think I need legal advice. Patricia's daughter, Amanda, met me at a coffee shop the next afternoon. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and direct, with her mother's no-nonsense attitude. Mom said you needed to talk to someone. What's going on, Miss Isabella? I told her everything. The pressure to sell the house, Marcus going to the bank, Sienna's threats about limiting access to Mason, the property value, all of it. She listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she sat back and studied me for a long moment. Okay, she said finally, I'm going to be very direct with you. What you're describing raises some red flags for me. Not necessarily criminal activity, but definitely concerning behavior. Your son and daughter-in-law are applying pressure to gain access to significant assets, both your property and your financial accounts. But is that illegal? They're family. Being family doesn't give them rights to your property or money, Miss Isabella. You're a competent adult. Your assets are yours to do with as you please. The fact that they're using emotional manipulation and threats regarding your grandson is troubling, and your son attempting to get information about your finances without your knowledge is definitely problematic. What should I do? Amanda tapped her pen against her notepad. First, I'd recommend updating your will and all your beneficiary designations, not necessarily removing Marcus, but adding layers of protection, maybe setting up a trust with conditions, or naming multiple beneficiaries, or putting in place a waiting period. Second, I'd suggest putting alerts on all your financial accounts and your property title. If anyone tries to access them or file any documents related to them, you'll be notified immediately. Third, and this is important, document everything. Every conversation, every text message, every interaction. If this escalates, you'll need evidence. You think it's going to escalate? She met my eyes. Miss Isabella, people don't usually back down when nearly $1 million is at stake, and that's what we're talking about here, the combined value of your assets. If your son and daughter-in-law are in financial trouble, or if they've convinced themselves they're entitled to your money, they're not going to give up easily. A chill ran through me. What could they do? Worst case, they could try to have you declared incompetent, claim you're not capable of managing your own affairs. With you out of the way legally, they'd gain control of your finances. It's called undue influence or elder abuse, and it happens more often than you think, usually by family members.
Marcus wouldn't. Maybe not, but Sienna might. And if she's controlling Marcus, which it sounds like she is, then you need to protect yourself. I left that meeting feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. My son, My beautiful boy. Was it really possible he'd turn on me like that? But I followed Amanda's advice. Over the next week, I worked with her to update my will. I set up a trust with specific conditions. Marcus would inherit, but not until he was 40, and not as a lump sum. The house couldn't be sold for at least 10 years after my death unless he was living in it. My financial accounts were restructured with checks and balances. I added alerts to everything: property title, bank accounts, credit reports. If anyone so much as looked at my information, I'd know. And I started documenting. I bought a small notebook and wrote down every interaction, every conversation with dates and times. I saved every text message and voicemail. I also did something else, something that felt sneaky but necessary. I set up a small camera in my living room, angled toward the front door and main area. Not because I planned to spy on anyone, but because Amanda had suggested it. If they come into your home and try to take things or pressure you, you'll have video evidence, she'd said. I hated that it had come to this, hated that I was protecting myself from my own son. But something in my gut told me I was right to be careful. 2 days later, Marcus called. "Mom, we need to talk. Can Sienna and I come over tomorrow around 1? "What's this about, Marcus?" "We've found a house, the perfect house, but we need to move fast. There are other offers. We need to know right now if you're going to help us or not." My heart sank. Here it was, the final push. "All right, come tomorrow." After I hung up, I texted Amanda, "They're coming tomorrow to pressure me again. Camera is set up." She texted back, "Remember, you don't owe them anything. Your property, your choice. Stand firm." I spent that evening looking at my photographs, walking through each room of my house, remembering my wedding day in this living room, Marcus's first steps in that hallway, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, quiet evenings reading on the porch, my mother's last days when I'd cared for her in the downstairs bedroom. This wasn't just real estate. This was my life, crystallized in wood and brick and memory. Whatever happened tomorrow, I wasn't giving it up. Not for Marcus, not for Sienna, not for anyone. I was done being pushed around. They arrived at 12:47 p.m., 13 minutes early, which felt intentional, like they were trying to catch me off guard. Marcus looked nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot on my porch. Sienna looked determined, dressed in a crisp business suit, like she was attending a corporate meeting. I let them in, didn't offer coffee or snacks. This wasn't a social visit. We sat in the living room, me in my usual chair, them on the sofa. Marcus kept glancing at Sienna, waiting for her to start.
"Isabella," Sienna began, her voice all business, "we've found a property in Riverside Hills. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, beautiful yard, excellent school district. It's listed at $650,000, and we can get it for $625,000 if we make an offer today." "That's nice," I said neutrally. "We've been pre-approved for a mortgage, but we need a substantial down payment to make the numbers work. We need $200,000. There it was. Not, "Will you sell your house?" but "We need money." "I see. Your house," Sienna continued, pulling out a folder, "according to this assessment, is worth $485,000. If you sell it, pay off any remaining expenses, you'd walk away with at least $450,000. You'd give us $200,000 for the down payment. The remaining $250,000 would be enough for you to live comfortably in a nice assisted living facility or a small condo." Assisted living? The words came out sharper than I intended. "I'm 63, Sienna. I'm not an invalid." "Of course not," she said smoothly. "Poor choice of words. I meant a retirement community, somewhere easy to maintain, where you wouldn't have to worry about yard work or repairs. You'd be so much more comfortable." "And what if I don't want to sell my house?" Marcus finally spoke. "Mom, please don't make this harder than it has to be. This is an opportunity for all of us. You'd be helping us get into a home where Mason can grow up. You'd be setting your grandson up for success. By making myself homeless?" "You wouldn't be homeless," Sienna said, and now irritation crept into her voice.
you'd be making a smart financial decision. Honestly, Isabella, you're being incredibly selfish about this. This house is too much for you anyway. The smart thing would be to sell, help your family, and simplify your life. Let me ask you something, I said quietly. If I give you $200,000 for your down payment, how exactly am I supposed to live on $250,000 for the rest of my life? I could live another 30 years, God willing. You have other money, Sienna said, and something in her tone made my blood run cold. You have retirement funds. You could access those if needed. How do you know about my retirement funds? Marcus looked uncomfortable. Sienna didn't blink. Marcus mentioned it. The point is, you have resources. You don't need to hoard them. Hoard them? I worked for 40 years to save that money. And now you can use it to help your family. Sienna's voice rose. That's what family does, Isabella. They help each other, unless you're one of those selfish people who only cares about themselves. I stood up. I think you should leave. We're not leaving until we settle this. We have a real estate agent waiting for your call. We need an answer today. My answer is no. No? Marcus stood too, his face flushing. Mom, you don't understand. We've already put earnest money down on this house. We told them we could come up with the down payment. If we don't, we lose the deposit. We lose $5,000. Then you shouldn't have made promises before securing the money. We secured it, Sienna snapped. You're our family. We thought we could count on you. Count on me to bankrupt myself for your dream house?
It's not a dream house. It's our future. Sienna was on her feet now, too, her professional mask completely dropped. Do you know what it's like trying to raise a child in that cramped apartment? Do you know how embarrassing it is when my friends come over and see how we live? Marcus deserves better than this. Marcus has a college degree and a good job because I made sure he got those things. I gave him everything I had. Well, it's time to give a little more. Sienna was almost shouting now. You're going to die someday, Isabella. All this money, this house, it's going to Marcus anyway. Why not help us now when we actually need it? The words hung in the air like poison. You're going to die someday. Get out of my house, I said, my voice shaking. Both of you, now. Mom, Marcus started. Now. They left, but not before Sienna turned at the door, her face twisted with fury. You're making a huge mistake. You're choosing money over your grandson. Don't come crying to us when you're old and alone and need help. Don't expect us to take care of you. The door slammed behind them. I stood in my living room, shaking, tears streaming down my face. The camera had captured everything, every word, every expression, every threat. I called Amanda immediately. They just left. I need you to hear this recording. That evening, she came to my house and watched the video. Her expression grew darker with every minute. This is financial elder abuse, she said flatly. Textbook case. The threats, the manipulation, the pressure tactics, and this comment about you dying, Miss Isabella, combined with your son's visit to the bank, this is very concerning. I think they're actively planning for your death, or at least planning to benefit from it. What do I do? We protect you. First thing tomorrow, I'm filing paperwork to create additional safeguards on all your accounts and property. No one will be able to touch anything without going through multiple levels of verification. And I want you to consider getting a medical evaluation, documentation that you're of sound mind and body. If they try to claim otherwise, you'll have recent proof. I nodded numbly. How had it come to this? How had my son, my own child, become someone I needed legal protection from? But I knew the answer. Sienna. She'd gotten her hooks into Marcus and twisted him into someone I didn't recognize, someone who valued money and status over his own mother. And she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. She'd assumed I was just a simple old woman, too tired and too trusting to fight back. She was about to learn how wrong she was. 3 days passed. Silence from Marcus and Sienna. I worked my shifts at the hospital, came home to my quiet house, and waited.
Amanda had filed all the protective paperwork. My accounts were locked down tight. My will was updated and filed with her office. I had copies of everything stored in 3 separate locations. On the 4th day, Marcus called. "Mom, Sienna's really upset. She hasn't been eating, barely sleeping. She says she's worried about Mason growing up without knowing her grandmother. Can we please try again? Can we all sit down like adults and work this out?" Adults, as if I'd been the one acting like a child. "All right, come over tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock. Can we come earlier, like maybe 2? Sienna wants to bring Mason. Thought maybe seeing him would help you understand." 6 o'clock, Marcus. Take it or leave it. He took it. I spent that next day preparing. Amanda came over at 4. We reviewed everything, the documents, the video, the bank records showing Marcus's inquiries. She brought a colleague, another lawyer named Robert, who specialized in elder law. At 5:45, I heard a car pull up. Through my window, I watched Marcus and Sienna get out. They'd left Mason with a sitter. Good. This wasn't something a child should witness. They walked up to my door. Sienna was carrying something, a large box. When I opened the door, her smile was sickeningly sweet. "Isabella, hi. We brought some things to discuss. Can we come in?" I stepped aside. They walked into the living room and stopped short when they saw Amanda and Robert sitting there, briefcases open, documents spread on my coffee table. "What's this?" Marcus asked, his face paling. "Marcus, Sienna, this is Amanda. You remember Patricia's daughter and her colleague Robert. They're here to help us have a legal discussion about some concerning behavior." "Legal discussion?" Sienna's mask cracked. "What are you talking about?" "Please, sit down. We have some things to go over." They sat, looking confused and increasingly worried. Sienna clutched her box. "First," Amanda began, "I want to address the repeated pressure you've placed on Miss Isabella regarding her property and finances. Over the past month, you've made numerous requests for her to sell her home and give you substantial sums of money. When she declined, you made threats about access to her grandson and comments about her future care. This constitutes financial elder abuse under state law." "That's ridiculous," Sienna started. "We have documentation," Robert interrupted smoothly, "including video of your last visit where you explicitly told Miss Isabella that she'd be alone and shouldn't expect help if she didn't comply." Marcus's face went bright red. "Mom, I was just trying to help plan for your future." "By going behind my back to my bank? By asking about my beneficiary designations and what would happen if I died? Marcus, that's not help. That's planning to inherit." "We weren't planning anything," Sienna burst out. "We just needed to know what resources might be available. We're trying to build a life here, and you're sitting on all this money that you don't even need." "It's her money," Amanda said coldly, "not yours. She earned it, she saved it, she has every right to keep it." Sienna's face twisted. "Fine. Fine. If you want to be stingy, but don't expect us to keep bringing Mason around. Don't expect to be part of his life. We'll tell him his grandmother didn't care enough about his future to help his parents." "Actually," Robert said, pulling out a document, "that brings us to our second point. Threatening to withhold a grandparent's access to a grandchild as punishment for not providing money is considered custodial interference and grandparent alienation. In this state, Miss Isabella has legal grounds to petition for grandparent visitation rights, especially given her established relationship with the child." Sienna's mouth opened and closed. "You'd sue us for visitation?" "I'd rather not," I said quietly, "but I will if you try to keep Mason from me as punishment." "This is insane," Marcus said, standing up. "Mom, we're family. We don't need lawyers and legal threats. We can work this out." "Sit down, Marcus." My voice came out harder than I'd heard it in years. He sat. I pulled out my own folder. "I want to show you something. This is the deed to this house. It was given to me by my parents, who bought it in 1968 for $42,000. They worked their whole lives to pay it off. When my mother died, she left me a note. I found it a few weeks ago. Let me read you what my mother wrote." I read them my mother's words, about never letting anyone pressure me to leave, about it being my foundation, my choice.
"Your grandmother," I told Marcus, my voice breaking slightly, "knew. She knew that someday someone might try to take this from me. She warned me, and I promised her I'd keep it unless I decided otherwise. I made that promise, and I'm keeping it. That's very touching, Sienna said sarcastically, but your dead mother's wishes don't pay for Mason's education or put food on our table. Neither does my house, I shot back. Your problems are not my emergency, Sienna. You and Marcus chose to have a child. You chose your careers, your lifestyle. Those choices come with responsibilities, but your choices don't obligate me to give up my security. Some grandmother you are, she spat. A grandmother who worked night shifts for 23 years to raise her son. A grandmother who has $400,000 in savings because she lived frugally and planned ahead. A grandmother who owns her house free and clear because she was responsible. I did everything right, Sienna. Everything. And I'm not apologizing for it. Sienna stood abruptly, grabbing her box. Well, since you're so attached to your precious house and your precious money, you can have these back too. She upended the box on my living room floor. Photographs, dozens of them, my wedding photos, baby pictures of Marcus, family portraits, holiday snapshots. They tumbled out in a cascade of broken glass and torn frames. We were going to keep these, Sienna said viciously, display them in our new house. But why would we want pictures of someone who doesn't care about us? You want to live in the past with your dead parents and your dusty old memories? Fine, choke on them. She turned to leave, Marcus following mutely behind her. But then her foot caught on something, a manila envelope that had fallen out of the box with the photos. It skidded across my hardwood floor and came to rest at Amanda's feet. Amanda picked it up. The envelope was unsealed. She pulled out the papers inside and her eyebrows shot up. Miss Isabella, do you know what these are? I took them from her. Bank statements. Not mine, Marcus and Sienna's. But paper-clipped to them was something else. An email from Sienna to someone named Derek at a real estate development company. The email was dated 5 weeks ago, right before they'd first approached me about selling. Dear Derek, following up on our conversation about the Maple Street properties, I've confirmed that my mother-in-law owns #247 outright, and it's assessed at $485K. She's elderly, single, and should be easy to convince to sell. Once we have her house funds, we can purchase the lot next door, #251, as well through the LLC we discussed. The combined lots would be worth $1.2 million to your development company, correct? Please confirm the finder's fee arrangement, 20% of total sale price once properties are acquired and flipped to your company. Looking forward to working with you. Best, Sienna. The room went absolutely silent. I read it again, then a third time. This wasn't about them needing a house. This was about them using my house as an investment vehicle. They were planning to get me to sell, use my money to buy additional properties, then flip everything to a developer for a massive profit. They were going to make over $200,000 by manipulating me out of my home. Marcus, I said, my voice shaking, did you know about this? He wouldn't look at me. That was answer enough. Get out, I whispered, then louder, get out of my house. Amanda and Robert were already on their feet. If you don't leave right now, we're calling the police. This email constitutes fraud. Miss Isabella, you'll want to press charges. I'm not pressing charges, I said, surprising everyone, including myself. I'm not sending my son to jail, but I am done. Marcus, you're no longer my beneficiary on anything. You're not in my will. You have no claim to my property or my money now or ever. I'll maintain a relationship with Mason, through the courts if necessary, but you and Sienna are dead to me. Mom, please, Marcus found his voice finally, tears streaming down his face. I didn't want, she said it was just, I never meant, you went along with it. That's enough. Leave. They left. Sienna stormed out with her head high, still defiant. Marcus looked back once, his face crumpling with grief and shame, but he left. The door closed behind them. I stood in my living room, surrounded by broken picture frames and scattered photographs, with 2 lawyers I'd hired to protect myself from my own son, and I finally let myself cry. Not because I'd lost, but because I'd won, and the victory tasted like ashes.
The following weeks were strange, quiet. Amanda helped me file a police report about the attempted fraud, though I didn't push for charges. The report was enough to scare Sienna. Her real estate license could be revoked if they investigated further, and Marcus could lose his job if his employer found out. They stayed away. I filed for grandparent visitation rights through the court. Marcus didn't fight. Every other Saturday, he brings Mason to a neutral location, a park near their apartment, and I spend 2 hours with my grandson. We don't speak beyond the logistics. Hi, Mom. Hello, Marcus. I'll be back at 4. Okay. Mason is 3 now, too young to understand why he doesn't come to Grandma's house anymore, why there are no more Sunday dinners or sleepover nights. Someday I'll have to explain. Someday he'll be old enough to hear the truth about what his parents tried to do. I updated my will. Most of my estate will go to Mason in a trust he'll access at age 25, managed by Amanda's firm. There's enough for his education, for his future. Marcus and Sienna will never touch a penny of it. The house on Maple Street, my house, my parents' house, my home, is still standing. The developers did come through, bought most of the block, tore down those beautiful old houses and built sterile townhomes, but #247 remains, a stubborn holdout in a neighborhood that doesn't recognize it anymore. Mrs. Chen is still next door, in the only other house that didn't sell. We have coffee together twice a week now. She was right about Sienna all along. Trust your gut, she tells me. It knows things before your brain catches up. Work continues. I'm still at the hospital, still working night shifts, though I've cut back to 3 days a week. I'm 64 now, thinking about retirement. I might sell the house someday, on my terms, when I'm ready. Maybe I'll buy something smaller by the ocean, or maybe I'll stay right here until they carry me out. It's my choice. That's the point. It was always supposed to be my choice. Sometimes I look at the photographs I salvaged from the box Sienna dumped on my floor. I got most of them reframed. They hang on my walls again, marking time, marking love, marking a life lived fully despite everything. There's one photo I look at most often. It's from Marcus's 10th birthday. We're in the backyard of this house, and he's wearing a party hat, grinning at the camera with chocolate cake smeared on his face. I'm behind him, my arms around his shoulders, my face pressed against his cheek. We look so happy, so complete. I mourned that boy, the one who loved me unconditionally, who used to tell me I was the best mom in the world, who drew me pictures and saved his allowance to buy me flowers on Mother's Day. I don't know where that boy went, when he transformed into a man who could look me in the eye and demand I make myself homeless for his benefit. Maybe he's still in there somewhere. Maybe someday he'll wake up, see what Sienna turned him into, and find his way back. Or maybe he won't. Maybe this is who he is now. Either way, I'm going to be okay. You know what I learned through all of this? I learned that love without boundaries isn't love, it's martyrdom. And martyrs don't help anyone, they just teach people that it's okay to take and take until there's nothing left to give. I learned that sacrifice has limits. I spent 30 years sacrificing for Marcus, and I'd do it again. The good years, the years when he was growing up and needed me. But that doesn't mean I owe him my entire existence. That doesn't mean I'm required to set myself on fire for his benefit. I learned that family isn't always who you're related to. Amanda, who barely knew me, fought harder than my own son. Mrs. Chen, my neighbor, showed me more loyalty than my daughter-in-law. Patricia, who checked on me every single day during the worst of it, they're my family now. The family you choose, the family who chooses you back, that's what matters. And I learned something else, something important. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you smart. It makes you strong. It makes you someone who refuses to be a victim. When Sienna dumped those photographs on my floor, she thought she was hurting me. She thought she was taking away my past, but she couldn't. Those memories are mine. They exist in my heart, in my mind, in every corner of this house I refused to give up. She can't take them. No one can. If you're listening to this and you're going through something similar, if someone in your life is pressuring you, manipulating you, trying to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself, I want you to hear me clearly. You don't owe anyone your security. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your future. Not your children, not your spouse, not your siblings. No one. The people who truly love you will never ask you to destroy yourself for their benefit. They'll never threaten to withhold love or access to grandchildren or family connection as punishment for having boundaries. That's not love, that's control, and you deserve better. I'm 64 years old. I've been a daughter, a wife, a widow, a mother, a nurse, a friend. I've been betrayed by someone I loved more than my own life. I've lost things I thought I couldn't survive losing, but I'm still here, still standing, still in my home, surrounded by my memories, living my life on my terms. And if I can do it, so can you. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for spending this time with me, letting me share what happened, what I learned, what I survived. If this resonated with you, if you've experienced something
similar, or you're worried about someone who might be going through this, I hope you'll share your story too. Not for my sake, for yours. Because telling the truth, naming what happened to you, refusing to stay silent about abuse, that's how we heal. That's how we help each other. Remember, every story has a lesson. Mine taught me that sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes strength means saying no. Sometimes family means walking away from the people who are supposed to matter most. Your story might be just beginning, and it might not look anything like you thought it would, but you'll get through it. You'll survive it. You'll stand on the other side, battered maybe, bruised maybe, but still standing. And that's what matters. This is Isabella, signing off. Take care of yourselves, protect yourselves, and never, ever apologize for refusing to set yourself on fire. Your life is yours. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.